I'm sure you can see that there are not three of us here. The chair is on her way. But because there is a quorum, I am going to go ahead and drive the car for a minute and call this meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Monroe County Election Board for December 1st, 2022. This is a hybrid meeting, so people are welcome to participate by Zoom or in person. And as we call to order, my name is Nicole Brown. I am the Monroe County Clerk and Secretary. And we also have present Donovan Garletts, the Republican board member of the Monroe County Election Board. I just don't like it when they give me the keys to the car because I just don't drive it very often. You feel like you're going to crash the Mercedes-Benz. But under the board agenda, we have old business, and the first order of business is to approve the minutes of the November 3rd election meeting. There are copious minutes prepared by Sherry that I have had an opportunity to review. I have no additions, deletions, or corrections.
Move to approve.
I will second. And so, Ms. Karen, will you please call the roll?
Okay, Clerk Brown,
Yes.
Board Member Garletts,
Yes.
motion approved 2-0.
Okay, with a thank you to Ms. Sherry, who's on vacation, but probably watching this meeting. And so please resume your vacation, but thank you for all of your hard work on these meeting minutes. The next item on the agenda under old minutes, the board had tabled the CFA 4 filing discussions to the December meeting to allow for election business at that time. And so, Ms. Karen, can I turn it over to you for the CFA 4 filings?
Yes, so we had 5 people that were late with their CFA 4, the pre-election that was due October 21st, 2022. And you have the names in front of you. Do you want me to read the names?
In the event that they're gonna have to appear before the board, sure. This would give them public notice that.
Okay, so Ashley Pirani was 1 day late. She actually came in on that day at 2:01, but that is considered being a day late. And then Elizabeth Sensenstein was 1 day late. Also, she came in at 1:23, a little closer to the noon deadline. Judy Sharp was 14 days late. She brought her CFA 4 in on November 3rd. Kate Wiltz was 3 days late. She brought hers in October 23rd. And then Aaron Wyatt was 7 days late, October 27th. So those are all done, accepting of the penalties of what you want to assess. Those did not, I believe, none of those have been late previously.
I do not see any of those candidates in the audience. Do we have any written correspondence?
I have not done anything with this. Everything that I do is a complimentary situation of
You're
whether it's
absolutely correct.
giving them heads up. I did send them out emails before the deadline of October 21st. Those, I've not sent anything with them because I didn't know for sure what you wanted to do. Actually, I didn't send out anything to anyone. This election's been kind of a bear, to say the least. And so that would be, I could send letters out and telling them whatever you want me to tell them.
So Board Member Garletts, might I suggest that for the 5 people who have turned in their CFA 4 filings, but they were late, that we believe that this is their first offense, but we're offering them the opportunity to come to the January meeting to offer an explanation for them being late, and then we can if it's their first offense, of course, we tend to
Wait,
waive that. And so there's no reason to believe that they won't be waived, but if there is some supplemental thing that they would like the board to take into account. I don't know how you feel about that.
no, I'm
We
okay.
deal
I
with
think,
those.
I think that's what we've done before too. So
Okay. And then for the ones who have not submitted anything. And again, the deadline was October 20th, correct?
October 21st.
October 21st.
Mhm.
That a second copy of the email that you sent be resent so that they, and inviting them to the January meeting. That might prompt.
So you would like me to send them an email asking them to come to the January meeting? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Or do you feel like a more formal piece of correspondence for the January meeting?
no, I think, and we offered to allow them to submit via letter or email too, right?
We did last time.
But that was only for late. For the non-filers, that's a whole other situation, correct?
I agree with that.
So they were late, but they did file. And I have their CFA 4.
I'm talking about the ones that are labeled not filed.
Okay. Those, yeah, I have a list of those.
So I think for the 5, we do what we've always done, and first time's a warning typically in terms of how we address it.
Right. But still typically they say something.
Right, and they submit via written or email or
Okay.
come in person, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I would say that, but I think the other ones are a whole other situation. I don't know how we want to handle those.
So then could we consider a formal letter that the election board members met in December? On that day, as of that date, there's nothing to indicate that the paperwork has been filed for the board's consideration, and that we are inviting them to attend the January meeting. And my preference would be, since we're talking about October 21st, by the time they come, it will be more than 60 days, that my preference would be that they appear in person.
Or any of the non-filers, first-time offenders that you know of?
I just listed the 2 that have been, they're all first-time offenders, excepting Ephrat Pfefferman and Thelma Jeffries. They both were late on the pre-primary this year, so they will be late twice this year. Ephrat's brand new. Thelma has been trustee for a long time.
So those 2, if we go in accordance with what we've done in the past, those would receive. Or, well, our new precedent, I say the past, but earlier this year, right? Didn't we?
So earlier this year, there was a meeting, I had a proxy where you talked about accepting written.
Correct, for first-time offenders. I'm talking about those 2 folks. So if these other ones are first-time offenders, I think they need to be invited.
Right.
No different than the other folks, but for the second time or multiple time folks, didn't we penalize in some way, shape, or form?
Actually, it's the first offense is no penalty, second offense, last warning, no penalty. Interesting. I was going to research this a little bit better, but someone in my office had researched Marion County with their offenders of CFA 4s, and they apparently send out $500 fines and $1,000 fines pretty readily.
I'm sure
So,
that county is huge.
yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, I thought we did something different for multiple time offenders earlier this, like 5 months ago.
And the third offense is 25% of their original penalty. So it takes the fourth one to actually be charged the 100%.
And none of these are a fourth.
No. And it's $50 a day. Up to $1,000.
The 2 that are previous, it's the first time. So this is their second time, right? I'm sorry, I messed that up.
I'm sorry. So yes, the two that have been late before, they were
This-
late twice this year.
Okay.
And that's the first time on my records that they've been late.
Okay. So this is not going to end in a significant fines or anything like that. I just am hopeful for the seriousness of the date was October 21st. By the time we meet again in January, it would, barring them submitting something, it will have been more than 60 days. That's significant. As generous as I believe the election board is, I think that's a slap in the face to not show up or something.
Yeah, perhaps for January's meeting, we need to talk about our generosity. And reevaluate that. Because
would agree.
I think this is 3 warnings is,
Yeah.
And
again, I
there-
think I said this at the last time we spoke about this, but I didn't have to give kindergartners 3 warnings when I was a principal. So this is the complete lack of accountability on just a form seems quite wild to me. Take that for what it is. It's one person's opinion, but I think we should at least put that on an agenda early in the year to discuss how we're going to deal with this in the future. But that's just me.
I think we had mentioned maybe thinking about following the Marion County rule that you'd mentioned. Was it's 1 warning and then a fine?
So the first offense is no penalty. The second offense is a warning with no penalty. Third offense is 25% of the fine. And then additional offenses, which would be the fourth. would
That's
be-
our policy or our.
And actually, it's very, what this is written up, it is a guideline. Clearly, guidelines can be changed at any time by the board of, I don't know if you have this written up, but
I don't have it with me, but I
Yes.
have it.
And what is Marion County's?
say,
What is Marion County's first offense is?
I don't know. I should have asked. I just know that by looking, somebody in my office looked them up and they were giving out $500 and $1,000 fines pretty readily. So we've only done $1,000 fine once in the history of my knowledge. We did do that one, but that person had been late many, many times. And they finally got the $1,000 fine, which he did pay. But this last time in the pre-primary, it just felt like kind of a circus of me going back and forth with these people, and they were not responding quickly. They kind of delayed. It would be another month before they'd get back to me, and then they wouldn't give me a reason. It was like, I am spending a lot of time when all of this, I don't even have to do that part. It's really, you meet the deadline, that's it. You know, you got caught speeding, you pay the penalty. So I spent a lot of time in the pre-primary one that it got frustrating to me. And so I do think too that I don't really like having people pay fines, but I just want them to do it. Send it in to me, bring it to me. I love it when I see everybody has checked off their list and they have filed on time.
Correct.
We have a question in the chat, which I thought I could read and maybe Karen could answer. It just says, could you explain what the CFA-4 form is and what candidates are required to do this? So I guess for our listening audience, so they know what we're debating.
Somebody wants to know what a CFA-4 is. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the campaign finance. What's the A? Act? Campaign finance, we'll call it ACT. And so when you start up a committee, you have to fill out a CFA-1, which designates you having a committee and putting the name of your committee on, having a treasurer, having your bank. You have to have bank information that you are going to be supplying the county. And then the CFA-4 is 3 times a year. We have a pre-primary and a pre-election and an annual. So one's due in April, one's October, one's January 1st, and it's enabling the public to actually know what their finances have been, what they've done with their finances, where the money has come in, their expenditures, how they've spent it. So it's a detailed explanation of all campaign finances, which is a legal situation, which can get to be pretty big. I don't think we've had anybody using their finances incorrectly that I know of, but we hear about that on a national level more often. But we just want to keep it very clean, and that I don't really suspect that going on. I think people just don't see it as important, or they just forget. But this is information that the public can see at all times. We post it on our website, the Monroe County website, and you can see who has filled out their CFA 4s and when they did it and on time. And then there's another CFA 11 that I don't think anyone needed to have one of those done in this election or at this period, is if they got a large amount of money, $1,000 or more in the short period right before election. So it's not like someone can wait and then just download a bunch of money into a campaign and no one knows that it's there. They have to report that immediately. And so it's just a good check and balance for the community, the public, to be able to see what's going on with the candidate campaigns.
And if I could dovetail with a couple of things. First, it is always, always, always the candidate's responsibility to know those dates. But first, as a courtesy, you prepare a candidate packet,
Oh, yeah.
and that candidate packet lists the deadlines
Absolutely.
and the fact that it's due at noon,
Mhm.
not the end of business day. So they have that packet that they can always go back to with their campaign, other campaign things. And then on top of that, as a courtesy, you have reached out to every candidate well in advance of the deadline to let them know, remind them of that date, that it's due at noon, so that by the time it comes before the board as having been late, there have been at least 2 opportunities to meet the deadline when we did not have to do that, because it is always the candidate's responsibility to meet that deadline and turn that report in.
Yes, exactly.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And so it has always been the board's perspective, at least as long as I have been on the board, that we take this seriously, because if you can't report your campaign finance information, how then can the county trust you as a candidate that if you were elected, you would do what you were supposed to do? And I know that my predecessor worked to get these meetings in this room so that it would be taken seriously, televised, and they understand that this is a very serious issue. So when you see the number of candidates in this instance, it appears that those candidates do not take it the deadline seriously.
Well, and as you noted, it's not just a requirement, it fulfills important legal accountability and transparency functions that are important for the public, but also as people's roles and as public officials.
Is that a question to me?
I was just commenting. But I guess you can tell me if you agree with that.
So the words on the screen this time are a lot smaller. Now, I don't think I got that much older since our last election board, but I usually could read it. Thank you. Captions will look like this. Thank you. So now I can hear you and read it.
That's actually very helpful. Thank you for adjusting the font size. I needed that too.
You're welcome.
May I request a copy of Marion County, what happens in Marion County, because perhaps Monroe County candidates are not cognizant of the generosity of the Monroe County Election Board. And so by comparison, if we could understand what they do in terms of the first offense, the second offense, how quickly they move to a fine, then that, because, kind sir, you will be chair of the election board next month, then if that is the topic for discussion as part of the January agenda, then we can, if it's time to reevaluate, it would certainly come as a splash of cold water if we were to implement and model what Marion County is doing.
And serve as a good guidepost, I think. Yeah,
I will check on that.
Thank you.
thank you.
And Madam Chair, I'm turning the keys back over to you. I don't like to drive the Mercedes.
And we need to start with this.
We did,
Okay. So we should move. Okay, so we'll move to new business.
correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So our next item will be to move to new business. The first one that we have is updates from Karen Wheeler and Nicole Brown.
Okay, so the election, I have a feeling you'll be wanting to talk about the election part. I just had a phone call today there was a little issue, but we got it resolved, but just a simple thing, sometimes we get ideas from voters and people who voters are a great place. But we just had one little thing with when we have the roping off of that electioneering area that you can't come into that chute. Someone just suggested maybe we could put little orange flags on that rope, just that people can see it easier. It's a very simple solution, but somebody tripped over a rope, did not get hurt. Everything was fine. It was dark in the morning. So it's like, we're always improving and trying to make up these or do things that are going to make things a little more smoothly. So I got one of those this morning, and I think that would be very easy to implement. Do you want to do the update of the election?
Absolutely. Thank you. I requested the turnout numbers and percentages for the general election. And so I wanted to make sure that Monroe County voters were aware that during early voting, 17,892 voters participated in the early voting process. On election day, 22,638 voters participated for a total of 40,530 voters, which represents a percentage of 41.19% of all registered voters in Monroe County. The numbers that I have, I can compare to the general in 2018, which amounted to 57.28% of registered voters in Monroe County. And in 2014, 25.79% of all registered voters in Monroe County turned out. So we did better than we did in 2014, but not as well as the general in 2018.
Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Great. Well, thank you so much for those numbers, and I'm glad to hear about the turnout as well. And our next item is the Hearthstone Health Campus and voter registrations.
So we had a health campus, Hearthstone Health Campus, that collected registrations from their residents and turned them into us, but it was past the deadline. And they had them more than the 10 days that they were supposed to have. So according to the law, it says up to the election board what you want to do with that. These people were not able to vote in this election. And we did call Hearthstone, and it was a new person that was doing, usually it's the activities director. And she did not know that there was a time limit or a deadline for that. And so she was very apologetic and said that it would not happen again, but it is at least worthy for you guys to take note of that. All the ones that I have here will get registered now that the registration is open. And so I have copies of them. So it's just a mishap. We are never happy with that, but it does happen. So if you want to address that to that health center or health campus, that's up to you. Or it doesn't happen very often. So I'm not really for sure what the procedure has been in the past.
And this is a situation where it's not the voters error, or at least the people who were trying to register, but in the process of turning it over so that it would be registered. And it also sounds like, although the deadlines had passed for our previous election, these voters are now registered and can vote going forward.
They will be registered. So we received these October 14th and the deadline, the last day to register was October 11th. And also when you help anybody else or get registrations, if you do a voter registration, if you're at the fair or wherever it might be on campus at IU, you have 10 days that you have to, when they sign that, put the date on, we have to have it back by that within that 10 days. And these were not, it was past the 10 days. So most of them were October 2nd, which if we'd have gotten them on time, we would have been able to register them. Looks like they're all October 2nd, sorry. So it was the 12 days. So that was too long. And then it was past the deadline. So it's actually 10 days or before the deadline. So would have
Is it
been,
whichever comes first?
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I-
These are still valid. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I have a perspective, but I would like to hear yours before I say anything.
My question is, obviously, those are two separate qualifiers, right, to make it a valid registration. Being that they did not qualify for the past election, are these registrations valid for next?
Yes.
Past 10 days? or
Yes.
whatever that might be? Okay.
Yes.
I don't have any problem with that. That's all.
So what I was going to say, and I have to admit a little affinity for any of my voters who are in the different assisted living centers and nursing homes. And to educate myself, when I first became clerk, I called up the ones that we're more familiar with, the Beltrace, the Meadowwood. I believe I went to her stuff, and I asked if I could be invited to speak to residents to let them know what happens to their ballot from the time they send it to us until it's tabulated at 6:01 on election night. I had a good time. I met a lot of amazing residents. That's obviously not something that I was able to do again during the pandemic. And certainly a lot of things changed, but this was my understanding from visiting all of those places, is that many times a new resident is given like a welcome packet. New things to help them become more comfortable in their new environment. And one of those is a voter registration card or a application to change from the residence they lived in to the nursing home. And that happens a lot. So there wouldn't be like a need for a huge registration drive, because as they became residents, they would have done that, and most people take advantage of that. I am never inclined to turn away something like that, but we obviously have deadlines, and we had the one that expired the day before early voting started, and we actually even got the extra day, if memory serves, because Monday was Columbus Day, recognized by the state. So my position is I'm never inclined to penalize anyone, any voter, but particularly a voter in one of our homes where they might not be able to get out and come and see us in person or anything like that. And so that's my 2 cents. Sorry.
If we were just looking at that it was 12 days late or whatever it was, we would have definitely registered and we would not have given a penalty to the voter. But it was past the deadline that we were not able to do anything with it. So.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it sounds like they were valid registrations. It's just that they didn't get there in time to validly qualify for the election that we just had, right? So that's why it's fine that they'll be there going forward. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with the other board members. I mean, I think from the perspective of in a democracy, we want everyone to be able to vote and as many people to, have their votes count. And it's always really heartbreaking, I think, when we have a situation like this where it's not voter error, people tried to do their best, and we just have these rules that make it really restrictive in terms of timing. And, you know, these are, to me, all arguments for the state of Indiana to make their voter registration deadlines closer to the election and allow more people to register. But it sounds like here it was just a mistake and no, you know, ill intent or anything like that. And so I'm wondering if it sounds like we've agreed to accept the registrations. They're completely valid, at least going forward for the next election. And I'm wondering if the next step, so I think Karen, you had said that you weren't sure what we had done in the past in terms of taking any action. And I was just going to propose, I guess our first action is making sure that we validly, you know, we accept all of these valid registrations going forward, but also maybe in the interest of voter education, that we send a letter back, you know, kind of acknowledging that we have the registrations, the voters are now registered, are eligible to vote. Unfortunately, these are the reasons they couldn't be registered in time to vote for the previous election, and maybe some kind of summary or information on registration rules, just as a reminder or refresher. You said there was a new person there who may not have been aware, but maybe it's just an opportunity to make sure that everyone there is aware of the procedures and, you know, hope that something, you know, to avoid something like this happening in the future.
And, you know, also, I think it would be a phenomenal bipartisan effort if both party chairs would maybe come to pull an event together to maybe go out to the different, or have volunteers go out and do the registration, because they get educated. You know, we go out to the university and, you know, there's a huge voter registration effort at the beginning of the academic year to get students registered. Well, why could that not also be a bipartisan time to reach out to some of my favorite voters? Just they are so sweet and lovely and appreciative of the opportunity to continue exercising their right to vote, that, you know, if we could maybe make a special appeal to the party chairs to incorporate something like that.
I think that would be amazing. I would really support that. Whatever we can do to enhance voter registration and awareness and information, I guess, voter education.
I have a cute story from the primary where one of my older voters, who I believe she's 90, was trying to break out of the rehabilitation facility to vote on election day. And she was letting her medical personnel know, I need to get out. I need to go vote. And bless her heart, being 90, her sweet daughter, whom I happen to know, had to remind her that she had already submitted her ballot by mail to vote. So I truly think she was just trying to break out. But, you know, that it just reminds you that we value every single voter. We want you to vote, and we can help make it as easy for you as possible to do that from your nursing home and assisted living community. Thank you.
So who will write the letter?
Do we have a packet of information that you could easily send?
Yes.
So maybe could we have like a simple cover letter that just says, these are the registrations, they've been registered as of this date and can go moving forward. Just a reminder, here are the rules attached or something like that. And then maybe we could follow up with a phone call and see if we can set up a time to do some kind of voter education session at some point.
So I would be happy to call, if you have the contact information, I'd be happy to call them and let them know that it's coming, that the board accepted it. The registration there's no problem. They will be eligible to vote in the next election, and to expect a letter, just a very simple cover letter with that information. Is that fair? If you would be willing to prepare the packet as requested, I would be willing to call the contact and say it's coming. And
Okay. Okay,
Is that fair?
sure.
Thank you. I see we have a question in the chat as well. I'll just read it for the audience. There was also a problem at Stonecroft with the activity director not getting a request for the travel board to come to their facility for the voters there. I don't know, is that something that
I'm
was not
trying to
aware of
understand. The problem is that the activity director did not get a request for travel board. I don't know that there's anything that we could do about that. If she's saying the activity director dropped the ball. But obviously I'm preaching to the choir when I say that the board is very generous, and we, on election day, if there has been something where a voter was not able, we have come together as a board and authorized a bipartisan team to go out. And for that party, the person who asked this question, I can tell you from that time when I was visiting the different homes, some of the people who work there are not necessarily excited to help people, the residents, vote. When I called to go to one home, they said, no, we don't need you to come. We take care of it. You know, it happened that I had an employee at the time who was married to someone there at that home, and she got me in so that I could meet, but they don't necessarily want the residents to take an active role. I want the residents to take an active role. And as a board, I know that we will do what, I don't know that we can do anything about an activity director making a decision not to act on a request for travel board. We'll deal with it if it comes before us on election day or sooner.
Yeah, and I guess just the most that we can do, I think right now is, again, voter education and awareness. So maybe added incentive to do the sessions that you had suggested, that we kind of go out as a bipartisan team and, you know, just sort of reinforce how important all of these rules are to the ability to cast a ballot. And then, you know, just what support and resources there are to make it possible for everyone to vote.
Right. And because they specifically mentioned Stonecroft, that puts me in mind of Stonebelt. And I was at a couple of events at Stonebelt prior to the election, and I said something to at least one party chair about, hey, I know they would love to hear from you if the candidates could come out to Stonebelt. And they did have an event. They had several events where the candidates came out and spoke to the clients at Stonebelt. So same kind of thing. It's an opportunity just to get the word out, and we all do that. League of Women Voters is often great about that, and having virtual events and opportunities and helping us get the word out. I can't think of everybody right now, so I don't want to leave anybody out. But we do a lot of voter education, and we do put it out, and it's unfortunate when these things come to the forefront after the election has passed.
Yes, and I think I'd also like to take this opportunity to remind everyone that early voting, I think, makes a difference, right? Because first of all, it you know, the more I think we never want to have the situation where someone intends to vote on election day and then you have car trouble or something else come up and just aren't able to cast your ballot. And so the earlier that people can vote, or the more opportunities we have, the more likely it is that, you know, everything will go smoothly and you can cast your ballot and not have to worry about, you know, car trouble or difficulty getting somewhere or something like that.
Agree.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for those updates. So we'll move now to public comments. And as with our past meetings, what I'll do is, since we have a hybrid meeting with people in person and online, I'll see if there's anyone in person who wants to come up to the podium and make a public comment. And I'll also give everyone online a minute to let us know if you'd like to make a public comment. We have three limited to 3 minutes. And if you'd like to make a public comment and are online, you can use the raise hand function or type a message in the chat so that we know that you would like to make a comment. And then I'll also take a look around the room, see if anyone would like to make a public comment here.
Standing room only.
Okay, going once. All right, I don't see anything in the chat or online with anyone wanting to make a public comment. We don't have anyone here in person wanting to make a comment. So I'll move to our next item of business, which is our notice about our Next county election board meeting is January 5th, 2023, our new year at 1 p.m. Same location and will be
Mhm.
hybrid online as
Absolutely.
well.
With a new chair.
Yeah.
He
I'll be-
looks so
I'll
thrilled.
be happy to pass the baton or my pen for a new chair. Well, thank you all so much. And with that, we will move. I'd like to have a motion to recess or adjourn.
I will make the motion to adjourn.
In roll call, Chairperson Rana,
Yes.
Clerk Brown,
Yes.
Board Member Garlitz. Motion approved 3-0.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you in January.